And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who loves herring and cream sauce. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, it's been beautiful the last few days. I'm on the mainland, not on Milleronia today, and of course, Colonel Jeff is with me, and here we are at stately Miller Manor. And it's just gorgeous. And the reason is, well, our kids are back with us in the house here, in the manor. And it's just great. And to pick them up and, just wonderful. And there's more to say about that coming up. But I feel wonderful, and it's great to be, well, back on the mainland. And as you know, that music always makes me feel just terrific anyway. That's the Emir Waked Orchestra and the Annalee Tipton Dancers, featuring boy tenor Mike Lucking, asking the musical question, did Playboy ever do a Women of Milleronia issue? Yes, Mike, they did. Good question, Mike. They, Playboy, they did a great issue of the Women of Milleronia. But we ran into a problem. Our women are so pretty on Milleronia. They're so beautiful. The male readers of Playboy went nuts and came to Milleronia to meet one. And I mean nuts. They found out where Milleronia is, what Milleronia is. And they came by plane, train, swim, boat, anything. Just that's how beautiful these women are. And by the way, for the record, our women didn't even have to pose in bikinis. Just a Milleronian woman in jeans and topsiders and a button-down shirt, outsider slacks, doing a crossword puzzle and looking up and smiling. Just that drove every man nuts, and hundreds got here and came here, and normally that's flattering, but not on Milleronia. Remember, it's not only did I found the place, but it's mine, it's me. So I decided right off the bat, the only thing to do was to toss them all in a volcano, which we did. Ollie Dungmeister III was plenty busy that week. And, boy, the fellas just, with the thought of meeting a woman that pretty, didn't even care anyway. They just I would just want to meet a woman, go out with her, and, maybe settle down and get married with her, maybe move here to Milleronia. And, I said, well, maybe, If that's a maybe for you, here's a maybe for me. Maybe you should have checked the rules first and applied the way you should. In any case, good question, Mike. Did Playboy ever do a Women of Milleronia issue? Yes, they did. By the way, just for the record, I saw to it, and I put my people in charge of it, that they got every single issue of that month, that magazine in Playboy with the Women of Milleronia, and they destroyed them all, burned them all. Well, not all. I kept 12. I kept a dozen, and every so often I'll take one out onto the balcony and sit in my Adirondack chair with a big cocktail and watch the sunset and raise a glass to every beautiful woman in Milleronia, and especially the ones in that magazine. Thanks, Mike. Good question. And by Amazon. That's right, Amazon. Still one of my favorite companies in the world. Boy, oh boy. You can get anything from Amazon. Anything in the world you can imagine, you can get. except, of course, an actual Amazon. You can't get them. And by the way, I mention this whenever it comes up. If you do get an Amazon, if the doorbell rings and you open it up and you see just a gorgeous, tall, 6'4" muscular, beautiful woman standing there, number one, call us. We'll take care of it. Don't get worried. Don't panic. Just call us, invite her in, give her a nice, cold soda with ice, of course, and then you run away and lay down and call us, and we'll come and we'll say hi. We'll be very cordial, and we'll say hi. We'll give her a great place to live, and so we can inspect her and just say, well, how long do you feel you want to stay on the mainland here? And Colonel Jeff, of course, is very good with that sort of thing. He's a good interrogator. And I always wanted to be, but I don't need to be with him around here. But Amazon is terrific. And you know what? To get to them, sure, you can go on your laptop, go on your iPhone, anything like that, but don't bother. We'll get you there. Come to our website, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain, Tom Mix?
This has been a Filmways presentation.
Wow, that was good. Was that Donna Douglas? Oh, brother. So that was from Beverly Hillbillies. Wow, that was terrific. That was, as you know, Flatt Scruggs, and played so much music for them. And boy, they were always great. And Donna Douglas, a terrific actress. She played Ellie Mae Clampett. And she was not only like, well, all the Clampetts, just rugged and tough, loved animals, could do anything with any animal, and she was as beautiful as could be. And that always makes me smile. That was a great surprise. Good for you, Colonel. Boy. Dun, 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 dun. So, at any rate, yes, do that. Go to our website. We have a banner that says Amazon on it. Click that banner and we'll get you there. Click that banner and go watch, lay down in your lazy boy chair and go watch an old episode of Beverly Hillbillies and smile and lift a glass to, well, Donna Douglas too. God bless her. Great actress and a beautiful woman. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. I love a great joke, and Colonel Jeff and I like this one too. So hope you do too, of course. In New York City, there's a mafia kingpin, a mafia don, the boss of everyone, boss of all bosses. And he has one of his employees, a very trusted one, is his accountant. And the accountant is deaf, intentionally deaf, so that, well, he can't hear some of the details the don talks about when the accountant needs to be around. And wouldn't you know it, sure enough, at one point, though, the accountant, who's always trusted completely by the don, $10 million is stolen and is missing from the don. And these are folks you don't want to steal from. And all the evidence points back to the accountant. So, oh boy, this is not good for the accountant. And the don calls him into his big chambers there in the big office, and he also calls his lawyer in because the lawyer does sign language, so he could speak with with the accountant and say what's going on. So the don does that. He walks over to the accountant, stands there, and says, "Where's the money?" And the accountant signs, and the lawyer sees the signs and says to the don, "He doesn't know what you mean." And the don walks over to him and grabs him by the collar and just, pulls him up and just says, and makes a big fist, and he says, "You listen to me." And he says to the lawyer, "Tell him that I'm going to ask him again, and if I don't get the right answer, he's going to get this fist. And I don't kid around with the big fist." And the lawyer does. He signs it to him, and then the accountant says again, "I don't know what you mean." And now the don goes just berserk, and he takes out a big gun Not a small one either, not a 22. This is a big one. This is a big gangster gun. And he puts it right under the guy's neck and says to him, all right, this is your last chance. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time, and if I don't get the right answer, I'm going to blow your brains out. And the lawyer signs that to him, and he says he signs back okay. The money is in a bag in the trunk of my car at my house, and it just sits there. It's right there now, and I'll give you the keys to the car, and none of this has to happen. And the Don looks over at the lawyer, and the lawyer says to him, he says you don't have the guts to pull the trigger. We got a good kick out of that. And those are tough guys, too. Just reminded myself that once I was on in a movie with Tim Allen, one of his movies, and we were shooting in New York, and someone came up on the sets. These neighborhoods are all controlled or owned by people. This happens in movies all the time with movie making in all cities. And this guy came up to me, in a suit, and he says to me, excuse me, Mr. Miller, it's between scenes and you're sitting in those movie chairs outside. And he said, I work with Don. So, and he mentions the name. I don't want to say it over the air. And I work for him, and he's a big fan of yours and would like to know if you want to have dinner with him tonight. He'd love to do that. And I said, I'll never forget. And I'm glad I did. I just said, oh, you know what? I would love to. Please tell him I'd love to, but I can't tonight. I'm one of the writers on the movie, and we're all going to get together and go through a couple of the scenes and see what we need to do to punch it up and make it sharper. And I said, is there another night, the night after that, tomorrow night, the night after that, or next week? And the guy says, no, it has to be tonight. And the Don is going on a business trip. And I said, well, please tell him thank you. And I'm so sorry, but I can't do it tonight. And you know what? I still think that was a wise move. I don't know. There are a lot of folks in Hollywood and, big stars too, who they'd love to hang out with so-and-so, with Don so-and-so. But I don't know. All I could think of was that everyone else at the table and everyone else at that restaurant would be looking at me thinking, maybe we could take his things. Maybe we could just, what does he have? How much does he have, this guy that the Don is having dinner with? And then, good luck now. In any case, that joke is a good one. Keep it alive and tell it to everyone you care about, your friends, your family, your loved ones. And there's still nothing like a good joke. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Still a great string quartet, always. This is a wonderful poem by James Whitcomb Riley, who was an American poet, lived 1849 to 1916. He was known as the Hoosier poet, because also he's from Indiana, and the children's poet. He wrote nearly 1,000 poems, and once again, it's one of those names, you have to be a poet with that name. James Whitcomb Riley. Come on. What else can you do? The day you're born, you get that name, you're going to be a poet. And here it is, A Summer Afternoon by James Whitcomb Riley. A languid atmosphere, a lazy breeze, with labored respiration moves the wheat from distant reaches till the golden seas break in crisp whispers at my feet. My book, neglected of an idle mind, hides for a moment from the eyes of men, or lightly opened by a critic wind, affrightedly reviews itself again. Off through the haze that dances in the shine, the warm sun showers in the open glade, the forest lies, a silhouette design, dimmed through and through with shade. A dreamy day, and tranquilly I lie, at anchor from all storms of mental strain, with absent vision gazing at the sky, like one that hears it rain. The katydid, so boisterous last night, clinging inverted in uneasy poise beneath a wheat blade, has forgotten quite if Katy did or didn't make a noise. The twitter sometimes of a wayward bird that checks the song abruptly at the sound, and mildly chiding echoes that have stirred, sink into silence all the more profound. And drowsily I hear the plaintive strain of some poor dove. Why, I can scarcely keep my heavy eyelids. There it is again. Cuckoo, I mustn't, cuckoo, fall asleep. Isn't that nice? Boy, good work for James Whitcomb Riley. I've read a few of his before here on the show. And, well, you know what? I hope you liked it as much as Colonel Jeff and I did. And that takes me to my third favorite part of the show. Magic Movie Moments. This is a terrific movie, and I've seen it, well, many times. This is in the many times category. I've seen this at least 12 times on cable. It's from 2014. Lucy, written and directed by Luc Besson, starring Scarlett Johannsen, Morgan Freeman, Annalee Tipton, Choi Min-sik, Amir Waked, who I mentioned at the beginning too, with Annalee Tipton. And it's a terrific movie. It's very creative, very interesting. This movie reaches for the stars and shows them in many ways, actually. But what a cast. And yes, by the way, Scarlett Johannsen, a great actress in everything she does. And yes, true, just gorgeous, but the way she presents herself in this part as Lucy, she is in such good control and brings so much off the screen. And the magic movie moment for me is, in the movie, Lucy is walking down the hallway through a lot of bad guys to get the suitcase full of drugs that she really needs. And it's sort of a business hallway. It's well lit and it's wide. It's about 15 feet wide. And just behind her, standing there, is the detective, the French detective, who's, well, protecting her and escorting her around. That's Amir Waked. And he's terrific. And she alone, at the end of all these bad guys, and they don't mean her well, they're going to kill her. And at the end of them in that hallway, there's their boss. Not the big boss, but the boss of that crew. There are a dozen or so of them, and he's got the briefcase she wants and she's going to get. So she's got to walk through these guys, and folks, it's just a wonderful scene. Her strength keeps growing. And Besson shows it very well, from 18%. How much of her brain power can she use? And the way she's been taking this drug, it increases from 18, 20, 25, 28, and then 30%, and it keeps growing. And at 30%, she has a power. She starts to walk through these guys, and they're just going to, they're going to kill her. And they can't. Suddenly, one by one, they rise and stick to the ceiling. And they're struggling to get down, but they can't. She does that. And not by waving her arms or anything. She's just looking straight ahead, walking down the hallway. And one by one, every one of the bad guys goes up and sticks to the ceiling. And she gets to the boss of that crew, and she just reaches out and takes the suitcase from him, and he's trying to hold on to it. but he himself is, well, completely incapacitated by her new brain power. And she takes the suitcase, and he's trying to fight, to swing, to do something, and he can't. And she walks back down the hallway and gets to that French detective who, by the way, not surprisingly, is scene by scene, he just can't believe the kind of power this fine young woman has that's growing. And he says to her at that point, I don't know how much longer I can be with you here. I don't know how I can help you. And she turns, and in this great acting, she just says, no, I need you. You'll stay here. And he says, as what? And she looks at him and kisses him in this very, well, alien way, which is wonderful. And she steps back and says, as a reminder, she's thinking back on her life. Excuse me. I think he stirred up a lot from that air conditioner. She's thinking back on her regular life before all this happened, before her search opened up. It's a terrific movie, folks. If you haven't seen it, find it and see it. Lucy, written and directed by Luc Besson. And what a cast. Scarlett Johannsen, Morgan Freeman, Annalie Tipton, Choi Min-sik, Amir Waked, and so many others. It's worth the try. I've seen it 15 times, and I really like it, each one of them. And you know what? Could you do that? Could I do that? Well, no, because it's a real search for the old philosophy of how much of our brains do we ever really use? 2%? 5%? 7%? There's a lot more there. What would happen with that? Well, you know what? I've learned again the lesson. It's been so wonderful having our kids back here, and that's why I'm on the mainland now. And they're living in the rooms they grew up in. And that just means the world. And I keep, opening doors and closing them just to look at them. And I do. I just for a second or two, just to look at them asleep. And I have the greatest time. And by the way, our older boy, the Marine, just put in our new air conditioner. And I mean today. Now, we have a new in my wife's office, which is adjacent to the studio here. And we had an air conditioner in there that goes one of those through the wall. That's, I guess, an older style air conditioner that you put in the house, but just goes through the wall. You cut a hole in the wall. And I didn't do that. And I couldn't do things like that. But I mean, the fellow who put it in, and that was 23 years ago. And as you know, time flies. And my wife said, we need a new air conditioner. And she and our older boy, the sergeant, just went out and got a new air conditioner. And he put it in. Now, what that means is he took out the old one and the frame and unscrewed everything and unhooked every wire and took that thing out. And I mean, folks, he started yesterday, did 3 or 4 hours on that. He'd never done a job like this. And then today, it was a 9 to 5 job today. And, well, a hot day here in Southern California. And he was banging and checking the frame and measuring everything. And they went back to one of the stores, Best Buy, just to make sure they could get everything. Well, the woods and the another saw just right for this job. And he and by the way, I helped him as much as, he's a real, I said, get a load of you. You're really just doing this. It's a technical, difficult job. You've never done this before. And he said something like, well, I did actually learn something in the Marines. And that's the truth. He can do so many things. And every so often I would help him pick the old one up. These are, as you know, with air conditioners that go in the wall. They're not easy to pick up. They're heavy and they're unwieldy. They're in weird shapes. But he was doing it. I mean, I held it a little bit just while he was setting something else up on it in the wall there. But there is a hole in the wall when he took the old one out. And that's always weird to see, by the way. You know that. A hole in your wall? Why is there a hole in my wall? And then he would say, wait, hold that wire, just push it so it doesn't get picked under. I said, do you need to reconnect that? And he said, yeah, that's the ground wire. That's for grounding. And you don't hook that again, and you'll be grounded. But I mean, everything, he put it in, and just before the Colonel got here tonight, and I mean all day long, he got it in, the new one's in, and they turned it on, the new one works. I mean, it's a real air conditioner in that wall, and it's a Kenmore for whatever that has, whatever worth that has to say. And I gave the best tip a father can do. He put in a hot day's work, and they were going to go out to dinner. My wife was going to take the two kids out to dinner while the Colonel and I did our show. And I said to my kid, I said, you know what? Hit the shower. Jump in the shower there. And you've been really pounding all day. Banging, pounding, lifting, connecting. And he said, that sounds good. And he did. He jumped in the shower. And that's the truth, too. I offer that to you folks, too. Well, you and I may not know many things or all sorts of things, but if you put in a full day's work in a really hot place, doing real physical work, you know what? Hit that shower. It doesn't have to be a long shower, but you jump in the shower for 5 or 7 minutes or something, you soap up and get everything off, you'll be glad you did. And he did, and he threw some clean clothes on, and he said, you know what? That was the right idea. And the three of them then went out to dinner, and Colonel Jeff and I are, with the show. But boy, oh boy, it's wonderful to know someone that you love, someone in your family, especially one of your kids, where you get to say, get a load of you. You did it. And there aren't many things I do. That's the truth. I mean, I'm not gifted naturally that way, and I started to think of that. I was talking to the Colonel, what have I built around here? What have I done? Well, we have 2 Adirondack chairs, and I built those. There's 2 white chairs. I didn't actually build them. I didn't cut the wood and then paint it and drill the holes for the screws, but it came in a kit, and those are big things, those Adirondack chairs, and I put them together. And they have all the screws and all the nuts and bolts. And I did that. It's not recently, but I still think of that. Well, I built those chairs. But I didn't. There's still good places to sit. The truth is, I can't really do any of those things. Changing light bulbs is a huge event. It's immense. I mean, just moving that little 3-step ladder stool is a tremendous bother. What a pain. I'm not a complete idiot. I know, well, you got to change light bulbs, of course, and I'll do anything. I'll do anything around here, but it's not like putting in a new air conditioner. That's a very complicated thing. And I'm pretty good at shopping, but I always get things my wife doesn't want, like herring. I like herring. In fact, I love it in a cream sauce. And it comes in, over in Ralph's, it comes in small and large jars. But my wife thinks having those in the fridge just make us look like a family from Lithuania, like we just got here on the boat. And whatever she likes is fine with me. And I think every fellow should be like that. And there are things I like. By the way, there's a story I have about herring. And how often do you get a chance to say that, by the way? And I was working in New York, and my friend Pat Hazel, who produced my one-man show at that point, and his associate, his assistant, he has his business down in Texas and Austin. He makes shows. So many. This Pat is terrific. And Pete Winkler was here with him, and they were uptown around 57th Street, and I was working, just finishing a job downtown below Greenwich Village. And I spoke to them. They were going back Monday, and this was a Sunday afternoon, and I called them. And I said, what are you guys doing? You want to go to dinner tonight? Yeah, good idea. Let's do that. Let's get together. And Pat says, where do you want to go? And there's a place that just closed, actually, the Carnegie Deli, which was kind of a New York spot. And that was known as, hey, do you want deli food? Do you want some deli food? It was in one of Woody Allen's movies, in fact. People went there. And I said, how about that? They said, sounds good. That was up on, I think it was 56th Street on 7th Avenue. I think so. Or 5th Avenue, whatever it is. But I picked them up in the hotel where they were staying there, up near there, and we just walked over. And, well, for crying out loud, I hadn't been to the Carnegie in a while. I've never needed a menu in a deli. For crying out loud, if I don't know delis by now, I never will. And the waiter came over. Now, here's something you don't see every day or ever. This guy was an Indian, that is from India. And there's not a lot of mixing in restaurants like that. I mean, this is a deli, this is a Jewish restaurant, and that's what you have there as waiters. You have Jewish men in their 70s who come over and say what they got the pad in the hand, and that's that. And this guy had worked there about 7 or 8 years, so he absorbed the habits and the physical maneuvers of all the other waiters, but he had a huge, thick accent. And he's from India. And he said, he comes over to our table, he says to me, and I said, you know what? He turned to me first, we're sitting down, and I said, you know what? I'd like some herring with cream sauce. I want to start with that. And he just immediately said, it's not here. And I said, what? And he was so strong on this. He just, he knew what was what. And I said, oh, you don't have herring? And then he started to get that bored look that a lot of waiters can get in New York. And he just said, it's not Jewish food. Here is Jewish food. And I said, and herring and cream? No. And I said, oh, all right. Now, I'm a big boy. I'm not a crybaby. So he said, what do you want? And I said, all right, well, you know what? I was going to just pick something else, and I certainly know how to order in a deli. But then it struck me, I was certain that he was right. I mean, he was so strong on this, and then I just, inside I thought, wait a minute, what? What is the, what? And I said, hold on a second. Do you have herring here? And he said, yes. I said, you have regular herring, pickled herring, matjes herring, and all kinds of herring? Yes. And chopped herring? Yes. But you don't have herring and cream sauce. Which it reminded me, wait a minute, I've had this my whole life. I love herring and cream sauce. And he said to me, listen, this is Jewish food here. If you had the time, and if I had the time, I would tell you about Jewish food, but I don't have the time. And then it struck me. I said, wait a minute. You're going to tell me about Jewish food? I am Jewish food. What's wrong with you? Where did you learn about it, Calcutta? And this is not insulting, by the way. This is my friend Pat and his assistant there thought, oh, do we have to get out of here now or something? But they didn't understand. I just said to them, this is just a discussion about food. That's very typical for a restaurant here in Manhattan. And I said to the guy, you know what, just give me a corned beef on rye, okay? And then I said, do you have those? You still have that, or is that out of fashion? And so we had a good meal, and that's fine. I came back the next couple of days myself, back to here in Southern California at stately Miller Manor. And there's a place, Art's Deli, that I've been to many times. I mean, we used to take the kids there a lot. I mean, thousands of times. And I went there to meet someone for a lunch. And as I walked in there, I know them. They know me. We know each other backwards. And there's a nice woman. I always liked her. And she was behind the counter as you walk in and at the cash registers. And she's got the hair in a bun, in gray. She was, I guess, in her 60s or 70s. And she smiles and says, hi. And I said, hi. And she said, been a while, you've been away on the road? I said, yes, I have. And we always liked each other. And then I said, I'm meeting someone here. She said, I know. He's over there. And I just started to walk over there. And then I just turned to her quickly and said, do you have herring and cream sauce here? It was still in my mind that I still didn't even know. Is this real? Is this true? This guy just really, put the wazoo on me. And I said to her, do you have herring and cream sauce? She looked at me the way she should. It's like walking into a restaurant in Rome and saying, do you know the word spaghetti? Do you have any pasta at all? You would get that look of the guy, what's wrong with you? What are you, from Mars? And she looked at me like that too, and there was a waitress who was filling out a check next to her, standing there, and the waitress said, you had it 100 times here from me alone? And I said, oh, you know what? Oh, how do you like that? And she said, what kind of a question is that? Why would you? Why? And I said, I was just in New York, and I went to the Carnegie Deli with a couple of friends. And the guy said they don't have herring and cream sauce. And she said it was great. She just said, listen, you know what? I think in New York, they're all crazy. So you know what? Don't worry about that. And I sat down with my friend at the table, and it was great because she passed by about a minute later holding some menus and flip-flopping in the sandals there. And as she passed me, she said, oh, you know what? If you're here Thursday, come by because we're going to try a new thing called chicken soup. And I said, oh, shut up. And I was laughing and she laughed, and that great laugh, as she walked away. And you know what? So it's nice to have things. It's better to have that story than to worry about, well, that, you know what, getting herring in a jar in cream sauce. But I love things like that, and love things to get when I go shopping for the manor. Pickles. I love pickles, but taking a jar of those out of a shopping bag on the counter gets me, the same look from my wife. And there's nothing wrong with that look. She doesn't need that stuff around here. She's a really good cook and chef. And olives, I love things like that. And onions, But the point is, folks, you know what? As long as you know that with someone you love, and as long as she knows it with you, and as you understand, we both know the truth. You and I both. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And that's the truest thing I know. The heck with cream sauce. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you here next time.
This has been a Film Waste presentation.